Hello, welcome to the Fairy Whispering podcast. As regular listeners will know, I sometimes like to record my introductions and outros out in nature, and I've come for a walk today with my daughter, Ava, and we're sat on a hillside overlooking the town that we live in. We've just walked through some beautiful meadows. Found a little rocky place to sit on the hillside, looking down on the woods that we're going to walk back home through. Welcome everyone. Before I introduce the episode, I just wanted to talk about something that's very close to my heart, and that is supporting cancer charities, especially Rowcroft Hospice. Because on a personal note, recently my mum was supported by them. And it really helped to get my mum back on her feet and to give her extra time and to give us all extra time. So if you can, please support the charity. If you're enjoying these episodes, a donation please to either Rowcroft Hospice or another cancer charity like Macmillan, or whatever cancer charity is in your part of the world. Thank you. Right, on with the episode. I'm really delighted to welcome Brett Manning to the podcast this time. Brett is an artist who's based in the USA, and I followed Brett's artwork for a while. She's very much inspired by the natural landscape around her home where she lives, and she creates amazing artwork of fairies. She also makes videos. She's very good at creating new characters that she does self-portraits of herself. There's all these different characters that are kind of inspired by fairies, nature, and by vintage photography and movies. So I really wanted to talk with her about her inspiration for her work, and also about fairies and her experience with fairies and how she likes to express fairies through creativity. She also created a book called One Foot in the Green, which contains her artwork of fairies and cryptids. I feel that this episode is really special because it highlights the importance of creativity and mindfulness in connecting with the fairy realm. Brett and I discuss how creating serves as a bridge to the other world. This is what I term fairy whispering, and I hope that it offers my listeners a new perspective on engaging with the mystical and magical in their lives. Enjoy the episode. The Fairy Whispering podcast explores guests' encounters with the other world of fairy and ways of connecting with this realm. From listening to messages in owls' hoots, finding a four-leaf clover, chasing rainbows, or inviting a gnome to dinner. I'm Claire Sylvan Wand, a fairy whisperer, researcher, and your guide on this journey. Take my hand and step into the twilit woodland, where they are waiting to meet you. Welcome, Brett.
Hello, thank you. I'm Brett Manning, and I am an artist. I do a lot of illustration work. I've been doing some short films recently. I live in rural northern Indiana on a farm.
I love the film that you created called Abduction, and there's one called Pixie Led as well. Could you tell me about your process with creating films?
Sure. So I initially started because I wanted to, I don't know, it was winter, but it was oddly nice outside. So I could get outside and do some fun stuff in nature that was kind of unusual for the time. And I've always just really enjoyed dressing up and taking pictures. So I wanted to create something in the most easy, resourceful way possible. And literally everything I have done with these short films has been just with my iPhone. And I'm trying to keep it that way. It's really, they're not, I wouldn't say they're any kind of serious thing at all. They're just a thing I do for fun. Yeah, it's just about getting into nature and being able to express myself in these kind of more physical ways as opposed to just putting something on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I love that because I was wondering how creating these films, and by the way, people listening, you can see Brett's films on her Instagram, which I'll put as a link to the in the show notes for this episode. How the creation of those films help you get into your illustration work and how they help you to connect with the world of fairy and cryptids as well, because you
Mhm.
illustrations of cryptids as well as fairies, don't you? So
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of
yeah.
otherworldly entities. Kind of the energy behind making the short films is just trying to tap into that very silly, fun, playful fairy energy, kind of tricky, kind of like thinking on your toes as much as possible, being super resourceful with the nature around you. Because I do these and there's so little preparation for how I'm going to do it. I just have a concept, I just have an idea or a theme. Like I wanted to make one where it's about being pixie led, and that was the only thing that I knew I wanted to do. So I went out there and just shot all these scenes and pieced them together. And there's no real script. It's so just off the cuff that it's kind of ridiculous. But I think that helps for like this spontaneous, silly fairy energy that I hope comes through.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. I mean, you say they're spontaneous. They are so
Mhm.
creative, though. They have a particular style about them, and I'm wondering where
Uh,
that style influence comes from. And
so I'm very, very into just old, like silent films. And that was a kind of a big inspiration. Just the expressive makeup and facial expressions that the actors make. I I love it. So that's kind of the styling behind a lot of these.
yeah, they're great. And who else does the filming? Because obviously there's some parts where the camera's following
Uh,
you through.
it's all me. I have a tripod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the shots where it's just me, you yeah, you might notice that they're just steady. They just don't move. I don't know. I haven't really figured out how to. I mean, I have friends that could possibly do it. I have friends who are still interested in helping me with the next one that I'm planning on making. So maybe it will be not a bigger budget. There's no budget, but just more hands on deck.
Yeah,
So,
fantastic. Do you, I mean, they do embody this joyfulness and, like you say, it's playfulness. Do you
mhm,
feel when you're creating these films, do you feel a connection with the fairy realm? Or does something,
very much. It's
yeah.
like such an intense thing while you're in it. You're just in it and you're making something. And the whole process, the whole reason when I really think about everything that I make, everything, it's
Mm.
because I like making things. It's not about the final product. It's
Mm.
about just the whole process of being part of it. And when I'm in the woods making the movies, it's like I'm here and I'm connected with everything around me. And I don't know, it's just such a good, enjoyable experience.
Mm. I mean, that process, this is why I love speaking to different people, different creators, people with different perspectives. This process of connecting through creativity and mindfulness. I mean, that's what I call fairy whispering. Other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, other people call it mindfulness or shamanism, all these different ways that we, through our self-expression, connect with that other world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so inspiring. And I also, you've created a photo book as well, haven't you, of your self-portrait?
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, can you share about that?
So that was something I kind of have been just wanting to put together for a very long time, because I've been taking photographs for years and years. As long as I've had a camera, I've been snapping pictures of myself and others in silly costumes or, but I thought it was time to maybe organize a bunch of them. So it's really, it might be about 15 years worth of pictures that I've taken, just kind of whittled down to the ones that I like the best or went together like in a book. So yeah, that was just a year's worth of things that I wanted to put together.
Everyone listening, go and check out Brett's Instagram with her photos, her films, and your wonderful art as well. Just going back to childhood experiences, I was wondering if you'd mind sharing with us your experiences with nature as a child, and also any otherworldly experiences that you might have had during childhood that have helped to form your path or your connection with fairies.
Sure. So it's really funny because the fairies found me. I would have never ever reached out into the world of fairies if I didn't have all these weird coincidences and synchronicities line up. I just never really even thought too much about it ever, oddly.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember a story from my grandma. She's from London, but she moved over to Illinois when she got married. So I would hear stories about her childhood in England, and she once told me and my sisters that she thought she saw a bunch of fairies in a tree. They were just lights lighting it up, and I just thought she was being silly. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, that's very nice, interesting. But then you hear stories like that all the time anymore, now that I'm in this world. So
Wow.
that's kind of a synchronistic thing. And then all these other little things that have happened to me, when I really think deeply about it, it's kind of like, well, that actually wasn't normal. It was very strange and very possibly very related. So it's almost like they've been trying to get me to know them, you know?
That's so interesting you say that, and that connection with your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
How old was she when she had that experience?
I think she was probably between 6 and 8. I think she said she was 8, but I can't remember. She was a child.
Wow, because there's this, I've spoken to other people that have had fairy experiences, and then someone a generation back in their family has also had fairy
Mm-hmm.
experience or another supernatural experience. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That connection.
I've only recently been kind of thinking back about that. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And was she very open about it and connected
Um,
to that realm?
she
Or
is a very, very stoic and quiet person. So what she would believe in, I don't know that any of us would ever truly know. But I know that her mom, my great grandma, was, a lot of people say that I remind them of her in a lot of ways. And she was very into reading tea leaves and just other silly things, like being super resourceful and finding things that people didn't want anymore and fixing them up and giving them new life. I don't know, just a lot of interesting similarities. but some magical things too. So
Oh, I'd love to hear those, Brett.
it's mostly just like psychic inclinations where she would know that people are going to call, what they were going to tell her, things like that. I almost wonder if they were almost afraid to embrace it or dig deeper, because my family, I do come from, I wouldn't say any of them are hyper religious, but there is that background, and I think they're afraid of a lot of this stuff. So that might have to do with why they never dug deeper.
Yeah. So do you feel that you're kind of moving, I don't know, rebelling? And not consciously, but you're kind of stepping forward and
Sort of like
showing, yeah,
moving and shaking things up because it's like
yeah.
the natural thing to do. It's not scary. It's just nature, and I am not going to let, I guess, religious text tell me that these beautiful things are evil. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. I've just been writing about that, about how fairies have been cast in this very sort of scary
Mm-hmm.
and scary light to basically cut us off.
Right.
It's this distancing kind of
Yeah.
tactic, isn't it, that's gone on over many years. And
Yeah.
personally, and it sounds like you're of a similar mind, I don't feel that they're out to get us.
Like living among the other animals and
Mm,
plants in the woods, I think they're their own thing,
mm,
and they might be on a different wavelength or here sometimes and sometimes not, but that's just part of their nature. And but yeah, like you were saying, it's kind of like people want to demonize them and just make everything as clinical and sterile as possible. And you can see that in people mowing their lawns and architecture that's just super boring. There's a
yeah.
lack of creativity so much
Mm,
right now.
mm.
And I'm not into it.
No, no, it's so important, isn't it? To, well, as you're doing, Brett, you're expressing this wonderful sense of enchantment, not only through your art, but through how you're living your life as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think I could do it another way. It's almost like I couldn't. I think I am very, well, I know I'm very prone to becoming pretty depressed. And I don't know. I think I'm just an extremely sensitive person, but I'm okay with all of this. It's not like a huge problem. And it's, I don't know, when I can just embrace the things that I find joy in and I'm not harming anybody, then that makes my mind at so much more ease and peace. And I think that's a hugely important thing. And not everybody has that privilege. So I identify that this is a form of privilege for me, you know?
It's a gift for other people. And I think we all, no matter what we're doing, if we're putting something out there that is inspiring people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't realize how much of a positive impact it is for
Mm-hmm.
other people, do we? So it's only when people say to us, and I expect you've had some feedback, positive feedback, to say, oh my gosh, that picture that you shared has
Yeah,
just totally changed my state of mind or lifted me up in some way. Yeah, so it's really important work, isn't it? Not just the creation, but the sharing with
definitely.
others. Yeah.
Something that one of the last things that I included in my fairy book was, and I'm not even going to be able to quote myself because I don't have my book on hand, but it's just staying as fascinated as you can with the world around you is so important, because when you're fascinated, you are going to want to create something, and creation is life, basically. And I don't know, staying enchanted and looking at the world around you as having so much more to it than what we actually see, and just being like curious and fascinated with it and not trying to even figure it out. That's just going to lead to more creativity, I think.
Definitely. And could you share about your wonderful book, One Foot in the Green, which I don't have yet, but it's on my list. I've seen various illustrations that you have in there that on your Instagram, but I'd like to know about your process of, where that came from. And
so, yeah, that is also something that was years and years in the works. I had made 2 very small versions of it, very just like kind of a bestiary style book with cryptids and fairies and monsters and things. But I really just wanted to make a gigantic version and include all of those. And then on top of it, I think I made 200 additional illustrations. So there's a lot in this book. And I think I started it in 2016. I think that's when the first illustration would have been made. And it was just years worth of work putting it towards that. But in 2020, that's when I kind of realized, like, I have some time. I can just like organize this and put this together. And I'm just going to self-publish it because I want it to be how I want it to be. And I ended up doing that.
Yeah. I think that's amazing that similarly with me, I started podcasting in 2020, not in this format. I just thought, right, I'm going to speak to this person about fairies because they really fascinate me, or that person, that friend of mine, about nature. And I just did some videos on YouTube, and then got into, I thought, right, I want to learn how to put an audio podcast together. And also had some amazing meditative experiences with fairies during that time. So it's incredible that you've, and other people I know as well, decided that was the time when you were going to.
Right. I've noticed this as well. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's become such a common thing that I hear that there's got to be something to it. It's really interesting.
And 2016 as well.
I know. Yeah.
That seems to be a key date as well. And I mean, that was the date when that year I recommitted to working with fairies and started to and I started a fairy journal. So
interesting.
Yeah.
There's something to it. And I just think this kind of stuff is so cool and magical. So neat.
Yeah. One of the illustrations from your book that I have seen on your Instagram that I love, and there's so many, is the fairy sat on the hold stone.
Yes.
Because the stone reminds me of something that could come from my part of the world. Obviously, I don't know who she is. So could you tell us about this fairy and the inspiration for her?
Yeah, actually, you're not so far off. My mom's whole side of the family is from England, so I have just like a pretty strong connection with that part of the world anyway. And really, that's what it is. A lot of the fairies in the book are very much inspired by that region in the world, just because I do have family over there still. And yeah, I feel a connection whenever I have visited. I've only gone once, unfortunately. I'd like to go again, but when I did go, it was a very interesting feeling where it was extremely familiar, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's really interesting that you had that feeling of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the southwest of England that your family come from then? Because
It
I'm
is
Devon.
actually.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
it really is. Yeah. So
Ah, wow.
grandma, she grew up in London, but her family is originally from, I think, Cornwall and Devon, and then more south, like along the coast. And yeah, so it
So
makes sense.
I wonder if the fairies have followed your family over to
I
the
wouldn't
US.
be surprised.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty cool.
would. And they're sort of seen, Brett, she's sensitive to us, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say I was gonna say when I was younger, I did have a visual experience of a fairy that I didn't realize was a fairy until I got older and started thinking about it. It just made sense. So I think I was about 7 or 8. It was in the evening. It was dark enough out that the street lights. So this was in a neighborhood. It wasn't even in the woods or anything. But the street lights started coming on and they all let off this really orange glow. And I was just looking outside of my bedroom window, and I was in the second level and would look down at this tree right below my window because there was a family of rabbits that I like to watch. And I just really love animals, so I just like to watch them, and they're so cute. But this one rabbit came out from the hole under the tree, and it had something riding on its back. And when I was really little, I assumed that it was like a mother carrying its baby because I knew that anteaters and opossums carry their babies on their back like that. And I told my mom, and she just kind of chuckled and was like, "No, rabbits don't carry their babies like that." And then that was the last I ever thought of it. And I kind of tucked it away. But I always had this silhouette of it ingrained into my mind with that orange glow from the streetlights right behind it. And it was just a black silhouette, perfectly the rabbit with the entity on top of its back. And I ended up just doing a quick watercolor of it, and it looks like a human form. And what I thought were the bunny's ears actually look more like they were wings or something. So this was like a classic winged fairy, which is something that I I'm not even super interested in, strangely. I like the
Mm,
spooky, darker fairies, really,
yeah.
but it's something that I saw and I can still see it in my mind's eye. And it's not a baby rabbit. It's it's a body. It's like a humanish body.
Wow. Is that in your book, Brett? That
I did
illustration?
include that. Yeah, and I put the
Oh,
watercolor in there with it. So that's honestly the closest. Like, I've tried to draw it before, but I included the one that I think like looks exactly like how I remember this image.
mm,
And yeah, so I feel like the fairies have, maybe they followed my grandma over and then they realized that I have some oddly sensitive abilities as well.
yeah, it's possible, isn't it?
Mhm.
Um, I was interviewing, I've just been writing about this actually. So I'm writing a book on pixies,
Mhm.
and I spoke with Chris Fleming a few months ago, who's a well-known medium. He's done lots of
Mhm.
psychic investigations, and he's encountered pixies.
Mhm.
And when he came over to the UK and he was doing a paranormal investigation somewhere in Devon,
Mhm.
the the beings, the elementals, said that they were pukwudgies, which is
Oh,
which is a
that's East Coast kind of indigenous, I guess you could call it. Maybe not even a cryptid is the right word, but a supernatural entity.
So are they in your parts? They're in Illinois. Are they that
So
part?
I
Or
currently live in Indiana. I was born
Indiana? Sorry.
in
Yeah.
Illinois, but
Ah, okay.
yeah, now I live in Indiana, just one state over. But I've heard a few stories. It's not
Mm,
as common as on the East Coast, like Massachusetts area, Vermont,
mm.
those regions. But I've heard some stories on different podcasts that I listen to where people think that they saw something that visually looks like how people would describe a pukwudgie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was interesting. I'd like
Yeah.
to hear about those podcasts, by the way, because I'm always looking for other fairy podcasts to listen to. Yeah, so the interesting thing was that they said when he asked right through the EVP recorder,
Hmm.
who are the elementals here? And they said Pukwudgie or Wudgie.
Hmm.
Then one of the other investigators said, the version of fairy that's in the UK that's similar to the Pukwudgie is Pixie. And then
Hmm.
these elementals replied, yeah, Pixie. So they were trying to say that they were like the Pukwudgie, which
So
Chris,
she could relate to something, or they could
yeah,
relate to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
is really
That's awesome.
fascinating. Yeah, really fascinating. So it just makes me, think about fairies and how, obviously they can travel anywhere. They're not bound by the same rules as us of time and space. So they could instantaneously travel from Cornwall to where you are in the US.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
definitely think so. And I think that's the reason why people see extremely similar things. They just call them different names in different parts of the
Mm.
world.
So the type of fairy that you saw as a child was, would you say it's more of a sort of a typical fairy with
Hmm.
wings
Yeah.
and yeah.
Extremely classic, like
Mm.
a very thin human like body. I don't remember if it had a hat on or anything. I don't think it did, but just very long, like this is how I've always described the wings, but they're kind of like sticks, like if there was a long pointy stick that had like a membrane on
Uh-huh.
it. Does that make any sense? Like a
Yeah,
very thin little like kindling stick, but
I
with
see.
lots of little points and stuff, very long and pointy.
Hmm.
So it doesn't make sense that that would be rabbit's ears, but that's all I could think of when I was a kid, that those two things were ears, but they're just so long and pointy.
That just sounds a beautiful experience to have. And like you say, and I know from my own experience and other people I've spoken to, these experiences stay in the mind, don't they?
Oh,
They're just,
absolutely.
they're just, it's like dreams. And I know you've had some amazing dreams. When you have a dream that is something different to the usual kind of dreams, it just stays with you, doesn't it?
It's almost like
Yeah.
you're in a completely other realm because it's not, you can tell when you're asleep, at least I can, and it's a just a
Mm.
dream. But sometimes it is as though you are on a completely other level of reality. And I have a lot of dreams like that. Really, I haven't lately because I've been in kind of a weird little slump, but I'm
Mm.
trying. But yeah, I'll have those dreams and I never forget them because I can feel everything.
Mm. Is there a dream you could share that
Oh man.
really stands out to you?
one of the strangest dreams I ever had. This is not fairy related whatsoever, but
Mm.
I was in the body of this middle-aged man who, like, I was witnessing it through his eyes, but I had no control. I was just like a passenger. And he had broken into, like, I already knew what was happening and everything. He had broken into his father-in-law's house, and he was going to steal a box of some valuable stuff that was in a back closet because he and his wife were getting divorced. And he didn't realize that the father-in-law was home. So the father-in-law woke up from a nap and came out into the hallway, and this man who I was a passenger to, he jumped over this couch and hid behind it for like a few seconds. And the father-in-law knew somebody was in the house. So he went and he got a weapon and started yelling, "Get out of the house." And this man freaked out and ran. He opened the sliding glass door and ran out the backyard and jumped over the fence as fast as he possibly could. And I woke up in a cold sweat. It was as though I was really witnessing this crime happen.
Wow.
It was extremely realistic and intense. And I could go far more into detail about everything about this house and how it was even laid out, but it's too much.
Wow. And was it this time period, or was it the past, or?
Actually, it was in the past. It was probably between not the 60s, could have been early 80s,
Mm.
maybe late 70s. I wasn't even alive at that point.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it could have been some sort of, do you think it's some sort of past life, maybe? Or would you?
I don't, it didn't feel like that. It felt
No.
like I just floated into this weird place in time
Mm.
that maybe nobody talked about because no crime really happened. So it wouldn't have been like, I wouldn't have been able to look it up or anything like that. But it felt so real. And it was just this family's drama. And it was just something important that had happened that had been lost in the ether of time, if that makes
Ah,
sense. It was kind of like
yeah,
I was watching a movie, but
yeah.
it held no significance to my personal life at the time or before or after. And it was really just like I was a witness against my will.
So interesting. Wow.
Maybe it's like a form of astral projection, but doing it in another time period. I think that's something that could be possible. And I just didn't know I was doing it at the time. So,
Yeah, because there's also, as well as astral projection, there's also remote viewing, which is very similar, where you can travel
true.
back in the past, can't you? Have you ever done that? That's quite interesting.
I would like
To,
to. Maybe someday. I almost feel like I'm not quite ready to do that right now. There was one point in time where I was so freaked out about something that had happened to me that I kind of made sure to close everything off until I was completely ready. And I really don't think I've been ready yet. So it's just a mental block right now.
I understand. I understand. And really, the way that you're expressing that connection through your art and films and photos and everything else you make, I know you make loads of stuff, is kind of a joyful, playful way of interacting with these worlds, isn't it? And maybe
Mhm.
maybe that feels, I don't know, maybe that feels a safer way for you to.
Oh, yeah. For now, this is like
Yeah.
the safe thing for me to do. It does bring me joy, like I said earlier. And um,
Yeah.
even if I never want to try to do those deeper meditation things, I'm kind of okay with it. I don't know. If it happens, it happens, but I'm not really seeking that out right now.
Mm.
So.
I just want to pick up on something. I think you said earlier that you're more interested or attracted to the darker fairies. Is that right? Did I hear that?
Well, I
Yeah.
do tend to like them, and that sounds odd to say because I genuinely don't think that I don't think that they are inherently evil. I think that they're just part of nature, and a lot of the times when they show up, it's because they're trying to make you realize something. So
Mhm.
they're very helpful. They're a catalyst. And that could even be like something like a Jenny Greenteeth type thing. You might see something like that and steer clear of possible dangers, you know?
Mm.
It's
I agree with you. There's a lot about the trickster part of fairies that is there to teach us and to help us to grow.
yeah,
Um,
that's what it is, I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
And I'm not discounting people that have had very difficult and scary experiences at
Oh,
all.
me neither. And I don't want that to come out or that to
Yeah.
come across is what I'm saying. Because I have the experience that I just mentioned a
Mm.
second ago about not wanting to dig any deeper because it was
Sure.
very intense. Um,
Mm.
that happened to me as well. So, but I'm
Mm.
a far better person for it. So,
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good that you've somehow, do you feel you've made your peace with it? Or,
oh,
yeah.
in fact, I've done different artworks and stuff kind of dedicated to it in a way. It's
Okay.
not scary. It's really not. It was horrifying at the time.
Mm.
Um, and it made me grow substantially as a person,
Mhm.
something that I had to do. And I had to be like shaken awake to do so. Otherwise, it would have never happened. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I say it's a catalyst for growth.
Yeah. And I'd love to know, because you've got so many characters that you portray and that you create on paper, if you could transform into one of those creatures or fairies for a day, what would you transform into?
I feel like I already do that sometimes when I play dress up. um, I I like a lot of the more. I guess I identify more with the humanoid looking ones. With I like to draw them with long, interesting hair and interesting garments and makeup, and it's the theatrical ones, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, and there are a few of your drawings that are they look like self-portraits because it,
Some of them
yeah,
are. Some of them it's completely unintentional. So,
yeah, they're amazing. How long do your drawings take? Because they're so detailed. I mean, just from an artist to artist sort of question, really, because
yeah.
I know how long some of the paintings that I do take. I mean, it's just like hours and hours, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely hours and hours. Sometimes months and months, and it's just because I'll sit down and scratch away for a little bit of time and then put it away, and um it completely depends on the piece, though. I
Mm,
feel I
mm,
could probably finish a smaller, like 5 by 7 inch fairy in about 6 hours.
wow. Yeah, you can see it's just because you use pen, don't you? Is it
Yeah.
yeah, like a fine pen. That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to pick up on the pictures that you sent me today, the mirrored photos, which
Yeah.
I love creating too. And just could you just sort of express or share with us about how that process for you, because I know what it does for me. Yeah, just share that process and why you like working with it.
Yeah, that is something that when I heard you talking about it and then I checked out your photos, it made me smile because I was just like, wow, I do that too. And that is so awesome that somebody else kind of taps into that as well. And for me, I I have a small patch of woods in front of my house. It's about 4 acres, I think. But it's
Mm.
it's like a good size. There's trails and stuff that I walk down, and I'll just bring my phone out with me and snap pictures of regions that somehow I'm just really drawn to. It
Mm.
seems like there's some kind of energy there that wants to be revealed or something. Not all of them do either. That's another thing I try to like be very respectful of. Not
Mm.
everything that I'm drawn to is going to want to be captured on film. So, got to be super mindful and respectful. But
Mm.
I don't know. It's just fun. It's everything I do is just for the process of making and the fun of it and
Yeah.
the joy that I can experience. And then when I mirror it, it does reveal different types of faces and things that I've often used as references for different fairies that I've drawn before.
Yeah, I'll just explain to people listening. So, this process we're talking about is where you take a photo on your phone and then just use a mirroring
Mm-hmm.
app, which, like a photo editing app that allows you to mirror photos. And it's really, as Brett's saying, it's a very quick, joyful process. And it sounds like you're following a similar process to the one that I follow, where I just follow my intuition
Mm-hmm.
and then see an image and I think, oh, that could be really interesting mirrored. And then you mirror it and all these other things appear, don't they?
They do. It's
Yeah.
really, really inspiring. I don't know. It's just fun. Just fun.
Yeah, it is. And that is the way to connect with fairies, isn't it? Through the heart, through fun, through lightness.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah.
how I feel, anyhow.
Mm. So, how can people connect with your wonderful work, Brett? And where can they find you? What's the best place for them to find out?
Probably on Instagram. And I do also have a Facebook art page. And it's just both places are my name. So Brett Manning and
Mhm.
then the art. So on Instagram and Facebook, Brett Manning art. And that's really it.
Fabulous. And you've got your Etsy shop as well?
Oh, I do. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's links to that on both of those places.
Great. Yeah, and I highly recommend looking at Brett's Etsy shop where you'll find her wonderful book, One Foot in the Green as well, and lots of other fabulous things because you've got clothes on there, haven't you, with your designs on? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I love the dresses that you've got on there with your designs. They're kind of these witchy sort of
Yeah. Thank you.
dresses. Yeah, amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for talking with me today, Brett. I can hear birds around you. Are you,
Yes.
yeah,
It stopped raining, so
lovely.
I'm sitting on a log almost this whole time now in the woods when it's great.
Oh,
So it worked
that's
out.
lovely. Oh, well, thanks for your time today. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Yeah, thanks for everything you've shared.
Absolutely. It was really awesome to talk to you. Thanks for asking me to do this. So
Thank you.
I ended up just doing a quick watercolor of it, and it looks like a human form. And what I thought were the bunny's ears actually look more like they were wings or something.